Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Nuggets News. Today we've got a very special guest, and that's Leemon, who's one of the co-founders of Hedera Hashgraph. So thanks so much for joining us today.
Oh, well, thanks for having me.
We did cover Hashgraph a couple of times on the channel. We had a good interview a while back, and you guys have done a lot since then, and it's really ramping up towards the listing of the token and some applications. So maybe get us up to speed with what's been happening the past 6 to 12 months.
Oh, wow. So a lot has happened. We first announced the company in 2018, and we had this crazy idea that we're going to have a council, and now we have 10 members, biggest companies in the world. Amazing. And we said we were going to have build a public network. We just had an algorithm. We didn't have the public network. Well, now we have a network that's been running for a year. We've had 50,000 people build profiles so that they can test it out. We have, 10 or 20,000 accounts that they've created to test it out. We said people would build on it. Well, now we have hundreds of dApps that have built on it, and we have dozens that will be actually launching at OA. Speaking of which, OA is open access. It is when we open it up so anyone in the world can use it, and it is Monday.
Fantastic. Well, that'll be out at time of recording. So a lot of it did happen behind closed doors early on. So it's great to see that it is opening up now. But those people that you've been, communicating with, what was it that attracted them to Hashgraph? Because a lot of people are experimenting with blockchain as well at the moment.
Yeah, there's been a lot of interest. Just spontaneously, these meetups started around the world, and we have 80 cities now that have meetups. It's amazing to me. People were excited about it because it's different. The consensus itself is different. It's faster and more secure than a blockchain that's building on a chain of blocks. It's actually a whole graph. And as opposed to other systems that use a graph, it's asynchronous Byzantine fault tolerant. So it's extra secure. And so it's fast and it's secure and it's an exciting algorithm. So people like that. And within just a few seconds, you get finality, and it's true finality, and you can prove it and even show the proof to a third party and prove it to them. Yeah. So there's a bunch of stuff people like.
I was just going to say, for people at home, maybe the beginners, when we talk about Byzantine fault tolerance and finality, on a blockchain, in theory, we're never 100% confident that a transaction's final because there could be someone out there mining a longer chain. So do you want to maybe talk about why that's really important for commercial applications?
Yeah. So if you go and spend some money at a store before they give you the product, they'd like to know for sure that they're going to get to keep the money. And on a blockchain, if they put it in the block and it starts to build, but then a different fork of it starts to build and gets to be longer, that's the one that will count, and your payment to the store won't count. And when do they know for sure that they can give you the product? Well, they never know. In typical proof of work systems, they just become a little bit more sure, then a little bit more sure, then a little bit more sure, but it's never totally sure. And there have actually been rare cases where very long chains have ended up reverting and becoming stale because the other one became longer. What you really want is finality, where there's a math proof that at a certain moment in time, you know for sure that your coin has reached that store, and now they can give you the candy bar you bought or the house that you bought or whatever. And we get that within a few seconds. And then you're absolutely positive that it really has gone through.
Are you also interested in Bitcoin and blockchain? Do you see it as a sort of store value thing, or do you really think that this is a superior technology and blockchain will fade away?
Oh, I don't know what the future is of these other things, but I think it's really cool that Bitcoin in particular got everything started. That was a very cool idea, that you could have a distributed thing and that you could trust it, even if you didn't trust any one computer. And so this just takes that to the next level. So now you can trust it more because it's ABFT and it's faster, has some other advantages.
So do you want to maybe explain for people that aren't familiar with Hedera Hashgraph, those basic things, and some of them were older concepts that you actually, sort of rebooted to make the new consensus protocol?
Yeah, so there turns out that aside from the blockchain world, entirely separate, there's this 30-year-old literature that was used in fault-tolerant systems and in databases systems and so on of Byzantine fault tolerance, which is a totally different thing. You don't have proof of work, you don't have mining going on. Instead, what you use is math to prove that it's secure. And Byzantine fault tolerance means that you will reach finality. You'll reach a moment when you know for sure, and it's guaranteed to be right, and we'll all guaranteed to get the same answer, which is cool. Then asynchronous Byzantine fault tolerance is one step further. Not only do we know this even if you don't make any assumptions about the speed of the internet. And even if people can shut down the honest nodes occasionally, we have attacks where you get a bunch of computers on the internet to flood one computer with messages, and that one computer just gets shut down while the attack is happening. If you're ABFT, you don't care. You still work fine. The rest of the computers work fine. If you aren't ABFT, then you might have to worry about that.
Yeah. So one of the things we saw this week was a little bit of controversy. So someone wrote a piece about what Hashgraph is sort of good for or bad for in their opinion. So do you want to maybe clear that up, your thoughts about the transactions per second and some things that came out this week?
Well, sure. So we have lots of transactions per second. What we have emphasized is 2 of our 4 services. So, it's a ledger. And you can build lots of apps and things on top of it, but the ledger itself provides 4 services. It has a cryptocurrency, it has file storage, it has smart contracts at OA, those are the 3, and then we're adding a 4th one, which is the consensus service, which is kind of a cool thing. We have across the board optimized everything for cryptocurrency transfers and the consensus service. Yeah. We think that that's the killer app, is making those 2 things fast. Yeah. For files and for smart contracts, we store them on the hard drive, so they're much slower, and we've never been tuning around that. We've always been tuning for the other 2 things. We keep them in RAM, we make them extra fast. We've done everything we can to make them fast. So smart contracts, we need to have that because other ledgers have it, and that's fine. And so we're going to start it at 10 transactions a second, and then it will go up from there to, a multiple of that. But the cryptocurrency payments, we're starting at a mere 10,000 per second, and we'll rapidly go up to a multiple of that. Yeah. And so because of the way that we've optimized, we should be able to get up to very high levels of micro payments or cryptocurrency payments and very high levels of consensus messages. We can talk about what that is. And then it'll be much slower for the file system and for the smart contracts.
So for the people at home that are getting familiar with these different types of consensus, is this sort of on the scale similar to a hash graph or maybe an IOTA rather than a blockchain?
Well, it is Hashgraph, so it's very similar to Hashgraph.
Oh, so what? Sorry, I meant nano. Sorry.
Sure, I understand. No, that's fine. It's funny. It has almost nothing in common with IOTA. If you drew pictures of them, you'd have circles with lines, and that's the only thing they have in common. Yeah. Because the circles mean something different, and the lines mean something different, and the properties are different. Yeah. So it doesn't use a blockchain. It does use a directed acyclic graph like IOTA, but what it does with the graph is totally different. So IOTA isn't BFT, and it certainly isn't ABFT, but this is ABFT. So it's very, very different from those, but it is also different from the blockchains.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I was thinking, don't say Ray blocks in my head, and then instead of saying nano, I said Hashgraph. So, but how does the token tie into all of this? Because we've seen a lot of, particularly businesses, experimenting with private chains and forks and no tokens. So how does the token? Is it really the cryptocurrency aspect of it that it's important to, or a bit of everything?
So it has lots of uses. First of all, you have to have a token to use the network. It's a public network. And so if there were no token involved, then people would overuse it. One person would do 1 trillion transactions a second and clog it up. So you have to have a token to pay for the transactions. And then, of course, it's proof of stake, which means you need a token to ensure security. Now we're on this path to permissionless. We're starting permission and going to permissionless, and you need the token when you're fully permissionless to be secure at all to stop Sybil attacks. So you have to have a token for that. So the token does both of those things. And then the token itself can be used for transactions on the network, and it is a useful thing in its own right. So there's lots of uses for the token.
So I heard you've had a lot of interest out of India was one of the countries that I've heard. But do you want to maybe talk about some of those? Is it developing nations that are showing interest, or is it really the big business corporate world?
It's interesting. So we're seeing interest across the board. You may have heard of Tata that we announced is part of our governing council. So they actually control us. I mean, they own and are part of us. Yeah. We have 10 council members now. But Tata from India is a very big deal. And we have had enormous interest from India and from China and from other Asian countries. South Korea has been very interested, and Japan has been very interested. Nomura is a council member from Japan. South America has been very interested. We have Magalu is a major retailer in South America. And then Europe and North America too, just the whole world. has been very interested.
Fantastic. And is there any sort of partnerships that you're most excited about, or particular applications of the technology that you sort of see it venturing towards first?
So we have been seeing a lot of interest in a wide range of things. So things involved in monetizing advertising, and things involved in recording records of things. And we even had Chainlink interested in allowing oracles. So they're building a utility on top of us that allows things on top of them, even one more layer of utility on top of it. Oracles are a very cool thing. We have been seeing interest in Hero allows you to listen to music. There's lots of things, lots of different types of applications. And then when we've been talking to people that want to do large scale applications at speed, we're starting to hear a lot of interest in the consensus service, which allows you to do the same things as those other things, but you can do it with privacy, where no one can even know what your transactions are if you want. And so that's something else that we're getting a lot of traction of people saying they're very interested in that.
Yeah, and Chainlink is one of my favorite projects. I think that getting data from the real world into these protocols is extremely important. But interoperability, you want to make this compatible with Ethereum already, I've heard, and I guess, is that your grand picture that there's going to be lots of chains talking to each other?
Oh, I think so. So one thing you can do is you can make your smart contracts be written in a standard language to make it easy to transport smart contracts across platforms. So we use standard Solidity. So you mentioned Ethereum. If you have a smart contract that runs on Ethereum, it will run on us with no changes. You just put the same bytecode on us and it can run there too. So that allows you to have interoperability of developers and of development tools and of that stuff, of the ecosystem. Then there's the other layer of interoperability. For example, you might want to do atomic swaps. So an atomic swap is when you want a transaction on one ledger to happen and a transaction on a second ledger to happen. And either they both happen or neither of them happens. Yeah. So either I give you some HBARs and you give me some Ether, or neither transfer happens.
Yeah.
And to do that, you have to have smart contracts. You have to have a smart contract language that allows you to have timestamps, and we do that as well. We support that. We even support that part of Ethereum. There's Solidity. There's a part of Solidity that looks at the blockchain. We actually implemented that even though we don't have a blockchain to look at.
Yeah.
Just so we can do atomic swaps.
Yeah, and the easiest way I can describe that for people at home is it's like you and I shaking hands with our private keys. Once one person has it, both person has it.
Yeah. So that's a really cool thing for interoperability. If you want to do atomic operations across two different unrelated ledgers, then you need something like that, and we can support that too.
So recently we saw a lot of buzz around Libra, and I think that got people asking more questions because we'd seen, I guess, more centralized projects like EOS and NEO come out, and now we have that. Whether or not Libra is going to even get off the ground, how do you see that? Is it a threat? Is it fitting into the ecosystem, or do you not think it's even going to come to pass?
I don't know if it's going to come to pass, but I do know it's been good for the ecosystem. So I think that it has validated things like the council model that we have. We do have some differences from Libra that are important, but I think in a lot of ways they took some of their ideas from us, which we thank them for. Yeah. It's validated it. But I think it's also validated the entire industry. I think the whole industry gets a boost from the wider world hearing about it. And more people had heard of Facebook than of blockchain, and now all those people who'd heard of Facebook are going to be hearing about blockchain, or of our world. I'm using blockchain there in the wider sense of distributed ledger technology, DLTs.
Yeah.
So I think that it has validated DLTs in general. It has validated having a really good council. I don't know if it'll get traction or not. They have some hurdles, but I think it's been a good thing.
So what's next for you guys now that you are launching it and opening it up? What are the headwinds you see? Is it just about getting more developers familiar and people building projects now?
Oh, I am really excited about that. That's really what it's all about. Sure, we'll continue to add features and things to the platform, but the real important thing here is what people build on top of it. Yeah. And in the case of Chainlink, what people build on top of the thing that was built on top of it. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
I love things like incubators. Helix has nothing to do with us, but they created an incubator just for companies that build on top of Hedera. And I think that's fantastic. So we have this ecosystem starting to build where you have tools on top of us that you can build on top of. And you have outside companies that are investing in companies that build on top of us. We have a developer community, lots of people in Discord that are developers that we talk with. I think that it all comes down now to not improving what we do, but to having all this stuff built on top of us. That's the exciting part at this point.
Are you a fan of Ethereum? And you said they're interoperable with your smart contracts as well. We see so many developers and projects popping up, and DeFi has really blossomed lately. So is that something that you're sort of hoping to capture a bit of market share and move into that space as well?
Oh, I think I think there's enough room for multiple ledgers, and I'm excited about all the other ledgers and what they are doing. I think that the DLT is an exciting space. And if you look at historically, when a new market opens up, you start with lots of people doing it, and then it winnows down to a few. It never winnows down to one. It always winnows down to a few. And so any industry you look at, it's ended up that way. It would appear that we're on a good trajectory to be one of those few. And I'm just excited about where the whole industry is going to go. DLTs in general have the potential to change the world. And people have been saying that for years, and we're actually getting to the point where I think it's going to start happening. And that's very exciting.
Yeah, and I guess that changing the world, I want to tie that into the next question about governments pushing back against Libra, for example. So do you want to talk about the governance model? And if I'm a token holder and I wasn't happy with the decision, are hard forks possible? How does the governance all work?
Yes. So the intent here is to not have splits of the ledger. So if you would imagine a hard fork where you have a copy of the state of the ledger and now you have two ledgers that have the same state, that kind of a split, that kind of a hard fork, we absolutely don't want that. I think it was fine in the early years of DLTs when we're all experimenting. But imagine you're storing your real estate in the ledger and then there's a split. Now there's two different ledgers with an opinion of who owns your house. Then you sell it and you record it in one and not the other. Now they have different opinions. Who knows which one to look at? So it's very important that we not split. We have a no forking policy. And we have good governance. And I think that the governance gives you more trust in it. It is very unlikely that all of these council members that are spread around the world under different governments, on different continents, in different cultures, in different industries, 18 different sectors we're trying for, wide diversity in what they do, and very large. They have names to protect. They're not going to do anything sleazy. They're going to get caught easily because it hurts their name, and we'll have complete transparency of what they're doing. I can talk about the various ways that they really can't do anything without and get away with it. Yeah. And we publish the meetings and the minutes that they have. I mean, just transparency across the board. They are checks and balances on each other. This is the way to bring real trust to a DLT. And so that's why I think it's incredibly important. Hashgraph is cool, but the council is also cool. I think both of them are needed to really have trust.
Fantastic. Is there anything else on the roadmap that we haven't touched on today that's really exciting you?
No, Monday is about all I can think of right now. Is there a future beyond Monday?
It's a bit
what I'm really. But yeah, we're going to add more features. We'll add sharding eventually when we need it. But our single shard is really fast, so we're not in any rush to do it. We will go down this path to being decentralized. We had a webinar on that, and we want to do it in a methodical way where we're secure at every point along the way. We will be becoming more and more permissionless along the way. We'll be releasing our coins. We have a 15-year schedule, and we've published the schedule. And it's methodical. It's basically a linear release of the coins over 15 years. Everything we're doing is just taking the steps in a methodical way, and the real excitement is what's going to be built on top of us. And that starts Monday with a couple dozen apps already running at the moment we flip the switch. We've already loaded them on the network. They will be running at the moment we flip the switch.
Have to check those out. In terms of getting more decentralized, how many nodes was it initially? Where are we now? And then obviously we want to get out there in the wild to however many we can.
Sure. So it's only a handful of nodes. We have 10 members, so you could say there's 10 nodes, and they're running nodes right now. We will grow to 39 members fairly soon, and then we will expand to nodes beyond the 39. We'll have nodes run by a large number, maybe hundreds of trusted organizations, and then eventually to hopefully millions and millions and millions of anonymous people where just anybody can run a node and it's anonymous. That's the path to decentralization. And we want to just do it methodically so that it's secure at every point. And I'm just anxious to get there as fast as possible.
Fantastic. I wanted to go down a little bit of a different route now and ask you about how you became friends with Mike Maloney. And are you a fan of gold and silver? And do you have any thoughts on what's going on around us at the moment with negative interest rates and that sort of thing?
So I don't have any thoughts on gold and silver. He's a great guy, and we've had he's been working with us for a long time. I mean, covering us for a long time. Gold and silver is interesting. Stable coins are interesting. Tokenization of assets, including gold and silver, is interesting. Tokenization of stocks is interesting, and of real estate. And I think what you're going to see is the DLTs play a role across the board in making it easier to get gold and silver. and easier to get real estate in stocks, and make it more liquid and make it more easy to manipulate. And I just think across the board, we're seeing the whole world changing because of DLTs. And that's our goal, is to change the world that way.
Fantastic. Any plans to come to Australia anytime soon? I know that everyone's crypto mad here. So do you know how big the Hedera community is here?
I know that we have people there, and I would love to come to Australia soon. I think that after this OA, I'm going to be taking a trip around the world to a lot of different places. I would love to come to Australia as well. Hopefully that's on my trip, but not just me. Mance is going around to various places, and so are several of our people. So hopefully we can go to Australia. I think we've had people go to Australia before, but I've just gone there for fun. I haven't gone there for Hedera, but I'd love to go there for Hedera too. I love Australia, but I've been there for fun. It's been really nice.
Fantastic. Well, yeah, when you do come over, we'll have to help you have a meetup or something, but that's been really educational for me today, and I hope everyone's enjoyed that at home. So thanks so much for coming on today.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.